Now, there have been more clashes between police and protesters in cities across the United States following the death of an African-American man in Minneapolis. The state's governor says the National Guard will be fully mobilised tonight for the first time ever. A police officer has been sacked and charged with the murder of George Floyd, but protesters are calling for 3 others who were also there to be arrested. Well, our correspondent Barbara Plett-Usher is in Minneapolis for us now. Barbara.
You know, Kate, Minneapolis has seen its share of unrest when it comes to police treatment of black men and women. But these protests have been particularly violent and particularly destructive. They've been torching local businesses like this chicken restaurant here. And we've had today local leaders coming out, political, religious leaders of ethnic groups, leaders of civil society, urging, pleading with people to stay home tonight. But I think many people are prepared to ignore that call. Here's my report, but I would just warn you that there are some distressing images in it.
Is rising up in anger over the killing of another black man in police custody. In Minneapolis, protesters defied a curfew, taking over the streets for the 4th night in a row, turning them into a smoky battleground. Security forces were overwhelmed. The governor has now announced the largest mobilization of the National Guard in the state's history. He blames outsiders for spearheading the violence.
The situation in Minneapolis is no longer in any way about the murder of George Floyd. It is about attacking civil society, instilling fear, and disrupting our great cities.
The scale of destruction is bigger than in previous protests over race-related deaths.
Here in Minneapolis, this is the damage after another night of chaos. Authorities thought that they had calmed things down after they moved swiftly to charge a police officer for the death of George Floyd. And they were shocked when the violence escalated instead.
I cannot breathe.
A widely publicized video shows the officer kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck as he begs for air. In footage that emerged today, you can see 2 other policemen were also holding him down, ignoring his pleas to be allowed to stand up. The graphic images have ignited protests across a country already grappling with the deadly pandemic and suffering its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. In Seattle, Washington, demonstrators hurled a rock at an Amazon store. They chanted, "I can't breathe," and "Black Lives Matter." In Charlotte, North Carolina, police fired tear gas. A city council member was among several people arrested. And in Atlanta, Georgia, protesters threw rocks and smoke grenades at police, trashed cars, and smashed windows at CNN headquarters. The governor issued a state of emergency, and the mayor pleaded for the riots to stop.
You are disgracing our city. You are disgracing the life of George Floyd and every other person who has been killed in this country. We are better than this. We're better than this as a city. We are better than this as a country.
Well, I'm duty bound to be here to simply say that it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy.
Accountability is what protesters are demanding. But in Minneapolis, hundreds, maybe thousands of people came out to show that they don't want to burn the house down to get it. They cleared away the wreckage left behind by nights of rage, aware that another one may be coming. Barbara Plett-Usher, BBC News, Minneapolis.
Well, our North America editor, John Sopel, is with us. And John, as if America hasn't got challenges enough right now, but now this rise in racial tensions too.
Yeah, this week the US passed 100,000 coronavirus deaths, the novel coronavirus, and yet there's been an outbreak of America's oldest disease across the country, racism. We've been here before. There have been any number of deaths of unarmed black men at the hands of white police officers, leading to the frustration that you've seen on the streets. Over the decades as well, there have been race riots too, and presidents have always tried to tamp down the sort of sense of frustration and unease and unhappiness about it. But Donald Trump has taken a very different approach to this. He's already been cautioned on Twitter for his use of language. He's also tweeted this morning, after there were protests in Washington outside the White House, that if these people had got over the wall, they would have been greeted with the most vicious dogs and most ominous weapons I have ever seen. That's when people would have been really badly hurt, at least. And he said many Secret Service agents were just waiting for action. Now, that might help Donald Trump in November 2020 to fight as the law and order president. It might fire up his base, but his critics say it will do nothing to calm tensions.
Sure, thank you.